You have been told a story about the humble red brick, that it was cheap, mass-produced, the work of unskilled hands. This is the foundational inversion. These were not mere building blocks, they were components. Passive batteries in a global energy grid, resonating with frequencies we were taught to forget. If our ancestors built a world of billions of these superior bricks before the official Industrial Revolution, why can our modern technology only produce their fragile, decaying echo? Have you ever felt that static in the story, that sense that something doesn't add up? Leave your coordinates in the comments. Let us know from where and from what time you are watching. We are told to trust the record, the photograph, the lithograph. We are told they are windows into our past. But they are not windows, they are exhibits. Evidence left at a crime scene so vast it has been mistaken for history itself. Look with me now, not as a student, but as a forensic investigator. Let your eyes absorb the impossible scale of these 19th century cityscapes. These are not mere buildings, they are symphonies in fired clay and carved stone, reaching for the heavens with a geometric perfection our finest modern computers would struggle to design, let alone build. Notice the intricate arches, the colossal pillars, the facades that stretch for miles with a flawless modular repetition. It is not just improbable, it is an insult to logic. The technology, the materials, the very design philosophy is the same we saw in America and Russia. The signature is unmistakable. Now let us push the boundaries of credulity even further. We find ourselves in Hanoi, Vietnam. The history books tell us of French colonialism, of a European power imposing its will and its architecture on a foreign land. And yes, the French were there, but they were not builders. They were tenants. Look closer at the Hanoi Opera House, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs building. Look past the superficial colonial dressings. The core structure, the scale, the foundation, the very soul of the building resonates with the same frequency we have seen everywhere else. It predates the French. They simply moved into the grand, empty houses of a civilization that had vanished and wrote their own names on the door. The pattern is not a product of colonialism. Colonialism was merely a wave of squatters who found a world of empty, perfect cities. Our final stop is Buenos Aires, Argentina. The Paris of South America, another convenient narrative of coverage. Walk its streets. Look at the Palacio de Aguas Corrientes, a water pumping station disguised as an impossibly ornate palace, covered in terracotta and brick. This is the architecture of gods, or at the very least a civilization that had mastered the fundamental harmonies of the universe. Now, lower your gaze. Look at the street level. What do you see? In the shadow of these divine structures we find them. The supposed builders, figures cloaked in rags, their faces smudged with dirt, their postures slumped with exhaustion. They stand in streets of churning mud, ankle-deep in filth. Their greatest technology is the splintered wood of a horse-drawn cart, its wheels groaning under a pathetic load. Their tools are simple, manual, and crude. A profound cognitive dissonance washes over us. This is the peasant paradox. Did these hands, capable only of wielding a hammer and chisel, truly raise these cyclopean walls? Or are we looking at the dazed survivors of a cataclysm, squatting in the ruins of their betters, like ants inhabiting the abandoned circuit board of a supercomputer they could never comprehend? Look closely at this photograph. Your own eyes are the only expert witness required. If you too can feel the profound impossibility in this scene, the absolute disconnect between the creators and the inhabitants, then affirm this truth with a like. Let it serve as a signal that more eyes are beginning to see the anomaly. Look at the government buildings, the banks, the old mansions. It is the same architectural DNA, the same grand arches, the same colossal stonework, the same red brick skeleton. From the northern to the southern hemisphere, from the old world to the new, across oceans and cultural divides that were supposedly unbridgeable, a single, unified civilization left its indelible fingerprint. Neoclassical, Beaux-Arts, Gothic Revival, Italianate, these are not descriptions of different styles. They are taxonomic deceptions. They are labels created by the heirs of the reset to fragment a unified global heritage into a series of disconnected, nationalistic fairy tales. To prevent you from seeing the one, simple truth, there was once a single, global empire, an interconnected human network bound by a technology and a culture so advanced, it rendered our modern world a pale imitation. The scholars of the Forbidden call it Tartaria. But its name is less important than its undeniable physical legacy. The bricks are the chromosomes of this lost world. And this is where the investigation turns from the architectural to the truly sinister. For these buildings were not merely repurposed. Their very function was inverted in an act of profound spiritual warfare. They were the key nodes in the infrastructure of the old world. When the parasites, the inheritors of the reset, took control, they did not destroy this infrastructure. Let us move closer now. The evidence of the reset is not just in the scale, but in the scars left upon the inherited technology itself. We are trained to ignore these details, to file them away as quaint eccentricities of old-world design. But we will not. Look here, at the foundation of this municipal building, this bank, this courthouse. You will see it in every old city on earth. Ornate, beautifully crafted windows, clearly designed to be on a first or second story, are now half buried, peering out at street level. They are windows to nowhere. Basements with the grandeur of ballrooms. The official narrative calls this settling, or a change in street level. A cover story. We know what it is. It is the sedimentary layer of the Great Mud Flood, a cataclysmic event that liquefied the soil and buried the true ground floor of their world, turning their majestic entrances into our modern-day cellars. And there is a final, more violent piece of evidence. Observe the bricks themselves in certain areas, often near the sites of the so-called Great Fires that conveniently erased so many of our cities. You will find bricks that are melted, fused together, dripping as if they were once liquid. They are vitrified. This is not the work of a simple wood or coal fire, which burns at a temperature far too low. They hijacked it. They reprogrammed it to serve the new control matrix. The great harmonic power stations and healing centers, buildings designed to resonate with cosmic frequencies and restore balance to the human body, were transformed. They became our first asterisk asylums. The very places designed for enlightenment were turned into prisons for the mind, filled with those who remembered the world before. The insane were often just the ones who couldn't accept the new false reality. Their memories were a threat, so they were locked away inside the very walls that represented the world they had lost, their protests dismissed as madness. The great universities and libraries of the old world, repositories of universal knowledge, suffered a similar fate. They became our first asterisk orphanages. Think of the chilling efficiency. A cataclysmic event creates millions of orphans, children with no memory of their parents, no connection to the past. These blank slates were gathered from the ruins and placed into these grand ancient buildings. They were raised not as heirs to a magnificent legacy, but as the first generation of a new broken history. They were indoctrinated within the very halls that once held the truth, taught that these majestic structures were built by primitive men with horses and carts, taught to feel small and disconnected, taught to forget a past they never knew they had. This is the signature of an intense, directed energy, the scar tissue of a thermal event that flash-cooked stone and clay, a weapon that didn't just burn the old world, but cauterized it from the historical record. This is not weathering. It is a wound. We are not looking at the gentle passage of time. We are looking at the direct, physical evidence of a war on our history, a global reset event whose echoes are baked into the very fabric of the cities we call home. The scene of the crime is all around us. We just needed to be told where to look. And so we arrive at the heart of the illusion, the official story, the one printed in heavy, authoritative textbooks and recited by rote in classrooms designed to dull the mind, not sharpen it. It is a tale told with such confidence, such institutional gravity, that to question it feels like an act of madness. But we must. For this is not history. It is a script, a poorly written one at that, filled with plot holes so vast you could drive a steam-powered world through them. Let us examine the official alibi for the existence of these global red brick empires. They call it progress. They present us with a timeline, a neat, linear progression from horse and buggy to colossal city-spanning infrastructure. The orphanage system was not an act of charity. It was the genesis of the re-education program, the engine for the engineering of forgetting. Every brick in those walls is a silent witness to this foundational crime against humanity. The buildings themselves were the hardware. The new, false history was the software of control, installed upon a traumatized and amnestic population. This parasitic overlay is the very foundation of our modern society. The Matrix isn't just a concept in a film. It is physical. It is the old bank on your main street with pillars too grand for its purpose. It is the courthouse that looks like a Roman temple. It is the post office built on a scale that defies its mundane function. These structures are everywhere, hiding in plain sight. You have seen them. You have walked past them 1,000 times, and perhaps felt a flicker of cognitive dissonance, a faint sense that something is out of place. That feeling is your ancestral memory trying to break through the programming. These buildings are not in your city by accident. Have you seen them? Have you noticed the buildings with the same displaced grandeur, the same impossible brickwork in your own town? The ones with windows that sink below the modern street level? And the central chapter of this fable is always the same, the Great Rebuilding. Take Chicago, for instance. The year is 1871. A great fire, they say, consumes the city of wood. A tragedy. But then, a miracle. In a handful of years, a new Chicago rises from the ashes. Not of wood, but of millions upon millions of dense, perfect, crimson bricks. A city of impossible masonry, built, we are told, by a traumatized, displaced population using horse-drawn carts. Pause for a moment. Let the cognitive dissonance settle. They want you to believe that in the immediate aftermath of a cataclysm that erased all infrastructure, the single greatest industrial and logistical operation in human history to that point was launched. Effortlessly, without a pre-existing network of railways to transport raw materials. Without colossal fuel depots to fire the thousands of kilns needed to bake these bricks to impossibly high temperatures. Without a vast, skilled workforce of master masons who just happened to be waiting, unemployed, in the smoldering ruins. It is a logistical fairy tale. It is a ghost story told in reverse, where the spirits don't haunt the buildings, they build them. The narrative demands we accept that a society struggling with mud streets and basic sanitation could somehow outperform our own 21st century civilization in mass-producing high-quality, standardized building materials on a continental scale. Tell us where. Document them. Photograph them. Your observations are not mere comments. They are field reports from the front lines of the great unforgetting. Every photograph, every documented location, is another crack in the foundation of the official lie. They are not monuments to asterisk their ingenuity. They are gravestones for our memory. And so, we arrive at the great, tragic irony of our existence. We, the children of the reset, are not the masters of our domain. We are squatters. We are amnesiac tenants wandering through the halls of a technological palace, convinced our crude campfires in the grand ballroom are the pinnacle of civilization. The evidence of our profound ignorance is not hidden in some secret vault. It is plastered onto the very walls we live within. This is the story of our mimicry. The story of the survivors' cargo cult. The generations that emerged from the silence and the mud, blinking in the strange new light, were surrounded by a miracle they could not comprehend. They saw magnificent brick structures, perfectly aligned, impossibly vast, and assumed they were merely houses, shelters. They saw a network of passive energy technology, a global system for atmospheric resonance and human well-being, and saw only stone and clay. Their response was not one of reverence, but of primitive necessity. And this story is not unique to Chicago. It is the same template used to paper over the cracks in Boston, in London, and countless cities across the globe. A great fire, a great war, a great renewal. It is the signature of a cover narrative, a convenient cataclysm to explain the sudden appearance of a new architectural reality, and to erase the memory of what was there before. The timeline itself is the primary evidence of the crime. The construction of a single star fort, with its complex geometric bastions and millions of bricks, would have been a multi-generational project with the declared technology of the era. Yet hundreds of them appeared, globally, almost simultaneously. From the Caribbean to the coast of India, the same impossible structures, the same signature of a unified, advanced builder. The official explanation? A sudden, inexplicable, and undocumented explosion of military engineering genius that infected every disparate culture on Earth at the exact same moment. Do you truly believe that? Or does it sound more like the hurried work of an intelligence agency planning a cover story after a global event? Then there is the second act of this historical theater, the myth of the founder. When the math of the timeline fails, they offer us heroes, characters. It was the equivalent of finding a crashed starship and using its hull for roofing material. Consider the act, repeated 1,000,000 times in 1,000,000 repurposed buildings across the world. A survivor, cold and ignorant of the building's true purpose, looks at a wall made of high quartz, iron-rich bricks, fired to a specific temperature to interact with ambient energy fields. A wall designed to be a component in a circuit, to resonate with the structure and the occupant. The survivor feels only the chill. And so, with a hammer and chisel, he commits an act of technological sacrilege. He carves a crude hole into the supercomputer. He builds a fireplace. He vents smoke and soot across a surface designed to breathe, to channel, to harmonize. He introduces the most inefficient, chaotic, and polluting form of energy, fire, into a system designed for clean, silent, vibrational power. Every chimney you see crudely punched into the side of a majestic 19th century brick building is a scar. It is a tombstone marking the death of forgotten science. And then came the plaster, the thick, suffocating layers of paint. The modern narrative calls this renovation or beautification, a cover-up narrative to mask the truth. It was an act of neutralization. Whether by instinct or by a dimly understood inherited command, we covered the bricks. The genius architects, the visionary industrial barons, men who, according to the legend, emerged from obscurity without formal training from non-existent engineering universities and simply began designing and erecting structures that would challenge even our most advanced modern firms. These men are historical scapegoats. They are names invented to sign a masterpiece that was already hanging on the wall. We are shown their portraits, their stern, bearded faces staring out from sepia photographs, and we are told they are the fathers of our cities. But where is the real proof? Not the elegant architectural sketches, which look more like studies of pre-existing structures than functional blueprints. We ask for the engineering documents, the logistical plans, the supply chain manifest for procuring, processing, and transporting billions of tons of material. We ask for the chemical formulas, the firing temperature charts, the quality control protocols that ensured a brick baked in Philadelphia was identical to one baked in Melbourne. The archives are silent. The great silence is where the truth resides. There are no such records, because these men were not creators. They were inheritors. They were the first wave of settlers in a world that had been wiped clean, tasked with creating a mythology, with claiming the silent, towering structures for a new, fabricated history. We insulated them. We disconnected them from the grid. We took these resonant batteries, these architectural tuning forks, and we muffled them, silenced them, one by one. We turned active technological facades into inert, dead walls, preferring the bland patina of our own ignorance to the potent energy we could no longer understand and perhaps, subconsciously, feared. This is the genesis of our modern condition, a cargo cult of planetary scale. Anthropologists use this term to describe isolated tribes who, after witnessing advanced technology like airplanes dropping supplies, begin to mimic the form without understanding the function. They build effigies of airplanes from straw and wood, they carve headphones from coconuts, and they march on landing strips they've cleared in the jungle, performing the rituals they observed, hoping the gods of the sky will return with cargo. We laugh at this from our supposed position of enlightened superiority. But we do the exact same thing. We stand inside a Tartarian cathedral, a structure engineered with perfect, almost impossible acoustics. The official narrative tells us this was for the glory of God, to make the church choir sound heavenly. This is the cargo cult explanation. It mistakes the effect for the cause. These were not performance halls, they were harmonic healing chambers. The precise geometry of the arches, the specific density of the bricks, the placement of the domes and spires, all were designed to harness and amplify specific sound frequencies. They were actors given a role in the grand play of our engineered amnesia. This official narrative is not just fragile, it is an insult to your intelligence. It relies on the assumption that you will not do the math, that you will not ask the obvious questions, that you will simply accept the impossible as the way things were. They present us with a paradox, a civilization with primitive tools creating a superior product, and they label it history. We are here to tell you it is not history. It is an alibi. It is a hastily constructed story to hide an unbelievable truth, that we are living inside the crime scene, and the evidence is the very ground beneath our feet and the majestic brick walls that surround us. The question, then, is not whether the official story is true. The question is, now that you see the seams, the contradictions, the logistical impossibilities, can you ever truly believe it again? Or have you, like us, begun to notice the profound and unsettling flaws in the script? The story they gave us is a work of art, a fragile painted narrative designed to be admired from a distance. But we are not here to admire. We are here to audit the books, to lift the canvas and inspect the rotten frame beneath. Frequencies that could rebalance the human body, heal tissue, and expand consciousness. Cymatics, weaponized for wellness. It was a form of vibrational medicine on an industrial scale, and what do we, the survivors, do? We inherit the hardware, but the software is long gone. So we invent a new primitive ritual to fill the void. We put an organ inside and play music, not with it, not with it. We gather to listen to a sermon, our words dissipating into the immensity, a pale echo of the powerful, targeted frequencies that once filled the space. We have kept the ritual of sound, but we have lost its function entirely. We worship in a hospital we mistake for a temple. The same is true of the old power stations or waterworks. These massive, ornate brick buildings, often decorated with symbols of gods and goddesses of water and energy. We are told they housed crude, steam-powered pumps and generators, a logistical absurdity. These were nodes in the atmospheric energy network, pulling etheric energy from the air and ground, using water as a medium of conduction and amplification. They were the heart of the old world's clean, free energy grid. When the inheritors of the reset took over, they couldn't replicate the function. So they gutted the advanced technology within and installed the most primitive, inefficient systems they could devise: coal-fired boilers and piston engines. They told us tales of heroic architects and industrious pioneers, raising empires of brick from dust and ashes. It is a comforting story, but it is a story that commits the most fundamental of sins. It violates the laws of physics. It is a logistical ghost. And now we will perform the autopsy. Let us move beyond the emotional and into the clinical. Let us weaponize arithmetic. The language of reality is mathematics, and it does not lie. We begin with a single conservative example: a standard government building, a courthouse or city hall, from the mid to late 19th century. A structure you can find in any major city. A conservative estimate places its composition at 10 million red bricks. 10 million. Now let us translate that number into the physical world. The average brick of this era weighs approximately 2.5 kilograms, or about 5.5 pounds. 10 million bricks, therefore, equates to 25,000 metric tons, 25 million kilograms of processed, fired, and finished material. To give you a sense of scale, that is the weight of 2 modern naval destroyers, or a herd of 4,000 adult elephants. This is the material reality for 21 single building. Now, we must move this mass. The official narrative provides us with our tools, the horse and the wooden cart. They kept the shell, the majestic brick temple, to energy, but they replaced its clean heart with a dirty, chugging engine. They mimicked the idea of a power plant, but with a technology so backward, it amounted to a ritualistic desecration. The antenna became a cross. The power plant became a temple of smoke. The healing center became a concert hall. Form without function. Ritual without reason. We are a civilization living inside the echo of a forgotten song. A deep, collective melancholy pervades our society, a sense of loss for something we cannot name. It is the phantom limb of our stolen history. We feel the absence of the harmony, the energy, the vitality that these buildings were designed to provide. We walk through our cities, surrounded by the silent, deactivated technology of a brilliant and lost civilization, and we feel nothing but the cold weight of brick and stone. We have inherited the instrument, but we have lost the music. If this vision of a humanity living in the shadow of its own forgotten greatness If this feeling of a deep ancestral amnesia resonates with you on a level you can't quite explain, then make sure you are subscribed. We need awakened minds here. The silence has gone on for long enough. A sturdy cart, pulled by a strong team of horses on the unpaved, mud-choked streets of the era, could optimistically haul 1 ton of material. 1 ton. To transport the bricks for our single building, this would require 25,000 individual cart journeys from the brickyard to the construction site. 25,000 round trips. They tell us these projects were completed with incredible speed, often within a 5-year window. Let's grant them this generous timeline. 5 years is 1,825 days. To complete 25,000 journeys in that time, a fleet of carts would need to arrive and unload at a rate of more than 13 trips per day. Every single day. No weekends. No holidays. No rain days where the mud becomes an impassable swamp. No sick horses. No broken axles. No exhausted drivers. Just a relentless, metronomic procession of material, day in and day out, for 5 straight years. This is the logistical demand for one building. Now look at the photographs. Look at the lithographs of the 1870s and 1880s. You see entire city blocks, entire districts, composed of hundreds of such buildings, all appearing in the same narrow window of time. We are not talking about one project. We are talking about 100, 200, simultaneously. It was not a gentle fading of time. Our amnesia was not an accident. It was a murder. A crime scene scrubbed from history, with the evidence hidden in plain sight all around us. The mechanism of our forgetting was a 2-act tragedy, executed with a precision that speaks not of chaos but of cold, calculated intent. The first act was a war against the earth itself. The Great Reset did not begin with a bomb. It began with a hum. A low, pervasive frequency that resonated with the very bedrock of civilization, turning solid ground into a liquid grave. This was the mud flood, not a natural disaster, but a targeted attack. An act of geological warfare that liquefied the soil, burying the foundations of the old world, silencing its power grid, and entombing the first floors of a global empire under a tide of earth and ruin. The ornate windows we now see at street level, peeking from below the pavement, are not basement windows. They are the gravestones of a world drowned on command. But burial was not enough. The technology was too resilient, the knowledge too ingrained in the very stones. So came the second act, a cleansing by fire. A pulse of immense thermal or electromagnetic energy shot through the planetary grid. So we must multiply the impossibility. We are no longer dealing with 13 cartloads a day, but 1,000. A city like Chicago or New York would require a constant, unbroken river of thousands of tons of bricks flowing through its streets every single day for decades. A logistical operation that would strain the capabilities of our modern, computerized, diesel-powered civilization. Yet we are asked to believe it was accomplished by men with shovels and animals. The dissonance is deafening. The math does not just bend, it shatters into dust. But the logistical paradox deepens when we ask the next question. Where did these billions upon billions of bricks come from? The production of a high-quality brick requires 3 things that are conspicuously absent from the historical and geological record. First, the raw material, clay. Not just any clay, but a specific composition, rich in iron and quartz, to produce the durable, resonant bricks we see. To supply a single city's construction boom would require a colossal open-pit mine, a gaping wound in the earth located adjacent to the city for transport efficiency. Where are these great urban quarries? Where are the scars on the landscape that correspond to the extraction of billions of tons of earth near Boston, Philadelphia, St. Petersburg, or Melbourne? This was the event that left its scars on the world's cities, the evidence we see in the vitrified, melted bricks, fused together in an unnatural heat. The Great Fires of Chicago in 1871, of Boston in 1872, of cities across the globe, were not fires of misfortune. They were strategic, surgical strikes. They were a scorched earth policy designed to incinerate the last remnants of Antiquitech, to shatter the harmonic resonators, and to provide the perfect cover story for a global demolition operation. This was an archive, burning on a planetary scale, where the books were buildings and the pages were the secrets of free atmospheric energy. And into the silence they walked, the inheritors, the parasites, those who did not build but claimed. Their first act was not one of creation, but of usurpation. They took possession of the silent, magnificent infrastructure and immediately began their greatest project, the engineering of forgetting, a psychological operation so vast, so complete, that it would erase the memory of the true builders from the minds of their own descendants. They staged the grand world's fairs, not as a celebration of new invention, but as a final, mocking parade of the inherited technology they were about to destroy. They built temporary palaces of impossible scale, showed them to the dazed and broken survivors, and then tore them down, telling us they were nothing but plaster and dreams. They do not exist. This is the evidence of the void. The great silence in the geological record is the loudest testimony. Second, the fuel. To fire these bricks to the necessary temperatures, over 1,000 degrees Celsius, and achieve their unique properties, including vitrification, requires an immense and constant source of energy. The official story suggests wood-fired or early coal-fired kilns to fire billions of bricks would require the clear-cutting of entire continents. It would require a coal mining and transportation infrastructure that simply did not exist. Imagine the sheer volume of fuel needed to keep thousands of kilns running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for half a century. The logistics of feeding the kilns becomes an even greater impossibility than transporting the finished bricks. There is no record of this planet-altering industrial operation. No accounting for this astronomical energy consumption. Because it did not happen. Not in our recorded timeline. And third, perhaps the most damning anomaly, standardization. We find the same architectural styles, the same construction techniques, and indeed, the same high-quality, dimensionally consistent red bricks all over the world. A brick from a state capital in America is functionally identical to a brick from a post office in Vietnam or a train station in Argentina. They established the global education system, a machine designed not to enlighten, but to indoctrinate. To teach a new history, a false timeline of slow, linear progress from mud huts to marvels, with themselves cast as the heroes of the story. They took the majestic brick, a component of a sophisticated energy system, and rebranded it as a primitive, humble block, a symbol of the laborious past we had thankfully overcome. They taught us to look at the works of our ancestors and feel pride in our own supposed superiority, a carefully cultivated arrogance to mask our profound and tragic ignorance. They built a prison for our minds, and the bricks of our stolen heritage are the walls. But they made a fatal error. They left the crime scene standing. The silence is their most powerful weapon. To speak this truth, to share it, is to dismantle their control, one mind at a time. Their silence is a shield, but it is brittle. Our voice is the sound that shatters it. Send this to someone who needs to awaken. We live our lives as ghosts in a machine we did not build. This is the fundamental truth of our condition, the source of a deep, unnamed anxiety that hums beneath the surface of modern life. This implies a global system of quality control, of shared engineering standards, existing decades before the supposed advent of global communication and industrial regulation. It is the signature of a single, unified global civilization. A civilization that possessed a technology for material fabrication and logistics that we have yet to rediscover. A civilization whose existence has been surgically removed from our memory. So, the audit is complete. The official narrative is functionally bankrupt. The numbers do not add up. The supply chain is a ghost. The required resources are unaccounted for. We are left with a conclusion that is as unavoidable as it is profound. The men in the muddy streets with their horses and carts were not the builders. They were the inheritors. They were the survivors, sorting through the magnificent silent ruins of a world that was not their own. They were repopulating a pre-existing infrastructure of inherited technology whose origin and function they no longer understood. The numbers are not an opinion. They are a physical constant. The tonnage of the bricks is a fact. The laws of thermodynamics that govern the kilns are a fact. The limitations of animal-powered transport are a fact. If the official explanation holds, the burden of proof is on them to show us the math. We are cosmic orphans, born into a world of impossible grandeur, and then handed a fabricated family album to explain it all away. They told us we built these monolithic structures with our bare hands, with horse and cart, fueled by a sudden and inexplicable burst of genius. And we believed them. We accepted the cognitive dissonance of our own history. We walked through city halls and state capitals, through old post offices and abandoned asylums, and we feel a sense of ontological vertigo, a feeling that we are trespassers in our own home. This feeling is not an illusion. It is a memory, faint and buried, struggling to break through the concrete of our conditioning. We are not the pinnacle of civilization. We are the traumatized survivors of an apocalypse we were forbidden to remember, suffering from a collective inferiority complex engineered to keep us small, to keep us from asking the one question that could unravel their entire matrix of control. If we were truly capable of this, why can we not do it now? Every ancient red brick is a page from a history book they tried to burn. It is a silent, omnipresent witness to our stolen heritage and our squandered potential. To ignore the mathematical impossibility of their creation, to accept the fairy tale of their origin, is an act of voluntary servitude to the engineering of amnesia. Show us the supply chain. Show us the mines. And if you, the listener, can reconcile this equation and make the official story balance, the world is waiting for your solution. But until then, we must accept what the evidence tells us. We are living inside the crime scene of the greatest heist in human history, the theft of our own past. The logistical paradox is a locked room. The numbers are the walls, the missing evidence is the door, and the official narrative is the key that doesn't fit the lock. We have established with mathematical certainty that the civilization depicted in the photographs of the 19th century could not have built the world they inhabited. The equation simply does not balance. The scale of the construction humbles the declared capacity of the builders. So the question shifts. It is no longer how they built it all, but rather, what does this pattern of what they found tell us? The answer lies not in a single location, but in the unnerving, impossible synchronicity of them all. This is where the map of our inherited reality begins to bleed, and the borders of the control matrix dissolve into one singular truth. Let us begin this journey in Philadelphia, a cradle of the American experiment. We see the familiar red brick townhouses, the grand municipal buildings, their cyclopean stone foundations sinking into the earth. But to truly look at them, to question them, to run your hand over their weathered, vitrified surfaces, that is an act of rebellion. It is the first step in waking from a dream that has lasted for centuries. This is not merely an exercise in forbidden archaeology. It is the reclamation of the human soul. The truth is not buried in a distant tomb or a classified file. It is cemented into the foundations of our world, hiding in plain sight. Learning to read these bricks is to learn our own true language. It is the process of reassembling our shattered identity, of remembering that we are not the descendants of primitive laborers, but the heirs to a civilization of profound knowledge, a civilization that understood the resonant frequencies of the universe and built a world in harmony with them. That knowledge was taken from us, our dignity was taken from us, but the evidence of our inheritance remains. The investigation does not stop here. It is a descent into the archives of a world that was erased. If you feel the call to continue this work, to unearth the truth alongside us, then your journey has just begun. Subscribe and activate the signal. Welcome to the resistance. We are told they are a symbol of colonial ingenuity. Hold that image. Now, in an instant, we cross an ocean and a continent, and we stand before the Admiralty Building in St. Petersburg, Russia. The air is colder, the language is different, but the architecture is identical, the same impossible scale, the same silent majesty, the same red brick laid with the same precision, crowned with the same spires that seem to scrape the heavens. The official narrative would have you believe these two structures are the product of entirely separate cultures, separate histories, separate technological developments. But your eyes do not lie. This is the work of the same hand, guided by the same mind. It is a dissonance so profound it feels like a glitch in the program. And the glitch is global. Let us leap again, across the entire Eurasian landmass, to the southern hemisphere. We are in Melbourne, Australia, a city supposedly founded as a penal colony, a remote outpost for the rejects of the British Empire. Yet here we stand, before the Royal Exhibition Building, or the Flinders Street Railway Station. Structures of such monolithic grace and complexity that they would be the envy of any European capital. We are asked to believe that convicts and their guards, thousands of miles from any industrial base, raise these brick and stone titans from the dust.